if I were to snap my fingers and all of a sudden you'll be a vice president
Right.
at that big company,
Right.
executive role,
Right.
would you trade that off for what you're doing now?
No. Yeah. I think I have
Okay.
to be no. Hi everyone, I'm Wyin.
So today, I wanted to just talk with people out in the world who are following some of FoFty principles, one of which is going off the path most people go through. And Wyan is somebody that I think she's actually gone through the path everybody's supposed to go through and highly successful at it, I must say. This is why we hired her, right?
So I think what Sang was talking about is like, for me, I'm born and raised in Singapore. So I grew up here all my life and I also studied here. So I'm very kind of follow the standard education system, went through university and then graduated and got a job in tech, which happened to be the hottest industry at that point in time. Probably
Yep.
still is, you know.
Little painful these days, but
Yeah.
in AI it's great still, yeah.
Yeah, and at that point in time, I also joined like a slightly bigger organization, and I worked there for a couple of years before actually dropping out and joining in really early stage startup. So it was quite a huge shift in terms of the whole working environment, I guess the whole lifestyle, and I think to add a little bit of like spice into that journey, I also adopted the digital nomad lifestyle.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
I went primarily to live in different countries, but mostly I spent my time in Korea. So not just a different country, but also using an entirely different language, quite a different culture from Singapore. So a lot of like major changes in my life, and yeah, I think been doing that for about 1 to 2 years, and ever since then I've kind of shifted from corporate girly to more of like a startup girly, I guess. Yeah.
And she's not telling the full story because she was actually a very, very accomplished student. You went to NUSCL, right? Which is
Yeah, when you
Yale NUS, sorry, which is one of the most prestigious places to go to school here in Singapore. And so she basically represents somebody who's excelled in the path that you're supposed to go to. Then after, yeah, she was an intern actually at Temasek. That's how I met her, and I was leading the team that she joined. And
ex-boss.
was I? Ah, that sounds weird saying that I'm a boss, but but yeah, so getting into Temasek is also it's a type of a company that most parents would be proud for their children to join. It's like you kind of made it, and yeah, that's where she was. And but then you gave that all up and you decided to join us. So what made you decide to join a startup of all things from a really like established name brand company like Temasek, and then going to this startup, which was an early stage startup too, right? Like,
It's more of a pull factor for me to change environments. I think for me, probably two main factors really come to mind now. I think one, it was an opportunity to take risk and grow, which I feel it will be a lot easier to get used to when I'm younger. And
what are you trying to say?
no, because I think
Yeah, I'm
like
taking a risk here right now, right?
yeah, but it's also like I think if possible, I really encourage building that habit of
Yeah.
like getting comfortable with taking risks, getting comfortable with maybe not getting the intended outcomes, because
Yeah.
I feel like the earlier you can build this like habit, it benefits you more
Yeah.
like later in life. That's not to say it's bad if you find it later, but
Yeah.
I really encourage like taking baby steps there. It's a lot easier than doing this like huge.
But okay, I'm curious actually. So you're saying like you did it to take risk, and it's good to start doing it when you're younger. But like, did you feel before you made that move that you weren't taking risks? Like, or was this like you were already taking risks, and this was just the next risk you were going to take? Was this like a big change for you in that sense?
It's kind of a mix of both. I think I've always been somebody that have taken risk like incrementally,
Yeah.
right? So, but I think this would be quite different from what my peers around my age were doing.
Yeah, I would
So
say
it's
so.
still like kind of a bit difficult sometimes to like justify why it seems like on the surface it will seem like out of the blue I'm choosing something very different. So
Yeah.
I think it's a little bit of both. Like on one hand, I've kind of taken small risks before. Like as I'm studying, I work on some entrepreneurial projects, so it's not entirely foreign. But it's also because of that, right? Then it's like gradual, right? Then you can actually, when you take smaller risks, then you have the courage to take bigger risks.
Yeah.
It's just like, I think for me, it was a way to really test my limits. Yeah, so that's one factor. I think the other factor is actually something that you shared with me very early on, which is like this idea of regret minimization.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, so I think it's kind of also tied to
Yes.
the first factor, because for me, I felt like I would definitely regret if I hadn't tried to put myself in a different environment and try to find, maybe a different lifestyle, a different part of me through working.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow, you actually listened to some of the stuff I was preaching to the team.
Yeah, I'm a very good student. I'm a very good student.
He's a good student.
Yeah.
But that's a pretty big move. I would say less than half. I think a lot less than half of Singaporean young professionals your age would take the leap, especially after working at a place like a big company, prestigious company like Temasek, and then just go to a startup, right, and work for them.
Yeah.
So I think that's quite a. But you see, the other thing is you didn't only just do that, but there's this whole other thing you did where you basically just moved to Korea.
Yeah.
Right? And so, but that was tell us about the startup. It was it let you do remote work, and
Yeah.
how did that whole thing?
The startup was a remote first startup. So the entire culture of the startup, it was actually started during COVID. So the entire culture of the startup was basically remote. And that really encouraged me to try this different lifestyle as well. It felt like the stars and the timing also aligned.
Yeah.
Because I do understand that a lot of people, even though they want to maybe work or live in a different place, they feel like perhaps their working environment can pull them back, or there are a lot of different considerations. So I was quite lucky that the stars kind of aligned, and even though it was scary, I knew that if I don't take the shot now, it would be really hard to find another window of opportunity again.
Yeah. And here's the thing, I know that you were doing very well at the big company job at Temasek, and probably if you continued working there, you would have just done the traditional path of just working, getting promoted, getting a higher job title, becoming director this, managing that. And that's one path you could have taken. I think you knew that was there.
Yeah.
But instead you chose to go down this path. And how did you, at this, reflecting back on that shift you made, I'm not going to ask you did you regret it or not, but how would you compare how things are going now? Let's say you stayed at the company and you became vice president, that kind of stuff, versus where you are now.
I think I would say that I have no regrets actually taking this path that I'm on now.
Yeah.
I think the alternative path was definitely very attractive, and I had put in the time and effort to gain that credibility at work. So I wouldn't say that it was kind of easy to just let go, but I would say that I don't regret the path that I'm on now, because I feel that it's more aligned with where I'm heading towards in the long term.
So let me ask you this question then. If I were to snap my fingers and all of a sudden you'll be a vice president
Right,
at that big company,
right,
executive role,
right.
would you trade that off for what you're doing now?
No. Yeah. I think I have
Okay.
to be no.
Why though? Is it because the pay would have been pretty good, right? And you would have a title on your resume that a lot of, I'm sorry to say, but a lot of people would say and look up to it and say wow, here's a young woman who has got an executive title at a large company. That doesn't.
I think having a title and having a good pay are attractive, right? But I feel like the path to get there is kind of what matters more to me in this season of my life. I think that I need I need and would like to have a lot, like a breadth of different experiences first, because I think when I hit that stage in life, I'm probably much more specialized. Maybe I will have like a strong niche, right? And I think before I hit that point, right, I want to kind of explore the different options that I have, because once I narrow down into one thing, um, I feel like it's a lot harder to remain agile and to
Yeah.
try different things. And I think I've always been like a more of a breadth person rather than like a depth person.
Yeah, that's really interesting because that's kind of what is sold to young ones is this, you can become a president CEO and that's success, and that's why you should study and work hard and you can become that person. And you were on that path. It wasn't like you were sucking and you weren't doing well in school. I mean, you were doing really well and all the way, right?
Yeah. For me, I've learned that unlike school, where generally you put in the hard work, right? You do the practice, you naturally like pass and
Yeah.
go to the second grade. I think work just doesn't function that way.
Yeah.
Like even if you put in the hard work, there can be many other factors why you don't get promoted to the next role. Like maybe there isn't even.
That's called politics.
Yeah. I don't know whether it's politics, but it also could be like you could be really good, but maybe there isn't even an opening or an opportunity to go out and other than like other like people politics going behind the scenes.
Yeah.
And so I think like for me, I quickly realized that career cannot be viewed in a singular way where you naturally just go upwards. There's like you put in a certain input and the output is to like progress upwards. And so for me, like I started switching the idea that how I view it is more like my career is like a map for me, where like I follow kind of like my curiosities, partly my curiosities, but also areas that I think can really help me grow. So even in choosing like the next roles, I would think about, okay, could this next role give me exposure to a different industry, different kind of business, different kind of like opportunities or different problems that I can work on. So rather than going just like vertically upwards, right? I think I put in more emphasis in terms of exploring the possibilities.
Yeah, and I don't need to say that I agree with you because that's what I'm trying to get more people to understand is exactly what you said is you can't have the blinders on and just go down one path because you never get to see what else might be out there. And when you said that it's not just politics, it's absolutely true. Sometimes the situation doesn't line up.
Yeah.
But then if you're in like this small internal world of a company where there's limited opportunities, then you're kind of selling yourself short because you don't know outside of that company there's the entire world that's going on. What might have worked for you that would have been better, right? So, think of the world as a company actually, and not the company as a company, right?
Yeah, I think it's really like you don't know what you don't know, and I feel like it's becoming a lot more obvious now that we have social media and there are so many new possibilities to be in different kinds of jobs and kind of let the world know about it, right? That it to me I feel like personally it will not do me any benefit if I try to pigeonhole myself too early. Yeah, and I think in this season of my life, like I can still have the benefit of being flexible, and that's what I value a lot.
And earlier we were just talking about I was in a meeting with Wyin, and he had his 20 life lessons, and one of them is that you should network with as many people as you can. But he also said that most people don't really get to know or come to know who they are really until they had enough life experiences, and that usually happens around when you're 40 years oldish. But it can happen earlier depending on how much life you've lived, right? I'm pretty sure about this, but if you go around asking people to introduce who they are and tell them not to say anything about their job, many people will actually struggle to answer that question.
Struggle.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
But that's the whole point is so going back to Byron Wynn, the whole point of networking and all that is because he was saying that, you know, it's at this stage. I mean, sadly, I'm not your age anymore, but it is at that earlier stage in life. And it's not like you can't do it when you get to my age. You can still do it as well, and you still should, which I am doing. But you have to go out and try a lot of different things and meet a lot of different people. The earlier you do it, the better, because you just have that larger runway of time, essentially, for you to actually figure out exactly who you are, right? And you can't figure that out without any input coming in from the outer world, right? Like people you meet, jobs you do, hobbies you do. It could be anything, right? Like, yeah, in your case, going to Korea and living here for a year, I mean, and learning a language, right? So
Yeah.
how good is your Korean now? Well, say something in Korean. Kumji. Okay, so she's being polite. I think her Korean's actually better than mine, sad to say. But we'll figure that out one other time. So anyway, I think you're on the right track, Wyin. I'm actually really happy to hear that you are where you are now, and that, I mean, sure, you've changed jobs and you're not where you were previously and now, and that's a good thing because you're now working at another company. Some people will look at that and be like, well, that was a failure and all this. But I think you're just doing what we should all be doing, which is trying different things and learning more about who we are by trying, right? And, the fact that you're doing this at your age, I think is really great. You've always been early and fast. So not a shocker to me. And saying things to me like, I'm not defined by my job. That's not who I am. That's really, it makes me happy to hear that. And I wish more people would think that way. I know the other people we worked with, I know Alvin was another person on our team.
Right.
He actually said the same thing on a Discord channel. Yeah, he introduced himself not as. It's actually a funny thing. So there is a Discord channel that I'm slowly creating for YouTube, and in there, there's like, come in and introduce yourself, say hi, and everybody's saying hi, like, hi, I'm blah blah, their job function, and that's what I'm doing, and blah. And then so Alvin actually came in and said, I'm not going to say my job. I'm going to say who I am, what I do, and I think that's really, really important. He reminded me of that, and can't wait to see what ends up happening in the next, I don't know, decade in your life. Somehow I feel you'll be successful in the proper definition of what successful is.
Yeah, I think everything's still like a work in progress for me, but I feel like if somehow I manage to keep this outlook and I keep this like approach, I guess, pretty sure I'll be a very different person that I will be very happy with.
Yeah. Well, having said that, thanks for joining the show, and all the best. And until the next time we see, peace out, everyone.
Thank you.